Hello Flight Simmers and welcome back to Alpha Hotel Flight Simulator Training. In our last video, we talked in depth about techniques and procedures needed to safely fly in mountainous areas. In this video, we'll talk about some of the mountain airports you might want to check out in Flight Sim and some tips and tricks for getting in and out of them. I do recommend checking out the first video in this series if you're new to mountain flying, and I'll leave a link to that video in this video's description. As I mentioned in the last video, we'll be primarily concentrating on airports in areas of the United States that are located at high elevations, above at least 5,000 feet above mean sea level, and that have mountainous terrain in relatively close proximity to the field. Many of these airports are located in the state of Colorado, as it has the highest concentration of high elevation airports in mountainous areas in the country, but I'll also highlight a few airports that are located outside that state as well. One must stop in the Rockies is Lake County Airport in Leadville, Colorado. It's the highest public use airport in the United States with a field elevation of 9,934 feet, and if you go there in the real world, you get a certificate to commemorate your visit. Other than being at a high elevation, it's not that difficult to operate at. The runway is relatively long for GA aircraft at 6,400 feet, and it's in a wide open valley with the terrain far enough from the field that it doesn't pose too much of a hazard. Arriving from the south up the Arkansas River Valley from Buena Vista is the easiest way to approach the field. Arriving from the north will have you navigating either a narrower mountain valley from the Frisco area or navigating Tennessee Pass, which has an elevation of 10,424 feet. If you want to come in from the east or the west, you'll have to navigate some of the higher mountain passes in the Rockies. The airport has some great scenery nearby, with Colorado's two highest peaks, Mount Elbert and Mount Massive, located about 7 miles to the west-southwest. Another must-do airport in the mountains is Aspen. Aspen is one of the high-detail airports in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it's the busiest airport in the Rockies in the real world. It lies at the south end of the Roaring Fork River Valley at an elevation of 7,838 feet and has steep terrain close to the field in all directions. The best way to approach the airport is to fly over the towns of Carbondale or Basalt to the northwest and then follow the Roaring Fork River and the Colorado State Highway 82 to the field. Like many airports located in narrow valleys, the airport is one way in and one way out, with all approaches being made to runway 15 and all departures made off of runway 33. Use caution on the approach, as a go-around will be extremely difficult due to the surrounding terrain. The runway is reasonably long at just over 8,000 feet, but due to the close proximity of the parallel taxiway, aircraft with wingspans of over 100 feet are not allowed to operate at the field in real life. So the largest aircraft you'll see here in the real world will be a large corporate jet or RJ. One of the more challenging fields in the Rockies is Glenwood Springs Airport. The airport is located about 26 miles to the northwest of Aspen, on the other end of the Roaring Fork River, just south of where it confluences into the Colorado. It also lies in a narrow river valley with high terrain on all sides. It's best approached from the southeast, with the town of Carbondale making a good entry point into the Roaring Fork River Valley in this direction as well. Like Aspen, it is one way in and one way out, with approaches best made to runway 32 and departures best made from runway 14. And like Aspen, go-around options are limited, and a go-around could prove challenging due to the high terrain and close proximity to the airport. This is one of the shortest paved public use runways in the Rockies at just over 3,300 feet in length. Make sure to take a look at your aircraft's performance before attempting an approach or departure from the field. The field may be too short for some high-performance aircraft, especially in high-density altitude conditions, and you may need to utilize short field procedures with numerous aircraft. On the positive side, the elevation of the airport is not that high at 5,916 feet, though this is still high enough to significantly affect aircraft performance in many aircraft. Because of the close proximity of the high terrain and short field length, many local mountain pilots considered this to be the most challenging airport in the Rockies. North of Aspen by about 25 miles is Eagle County Airport, sitting at an elevation of 6,547 feet. This is the primary commercial airport used to access the Vail ski resort, so we'll see aircraft as large as a Boeing 757 in the real world, particularly during the ski season. Because of this, it has a longer runway of about 9,000 feet. The airport is located in the Eagle River Valley, which is relatively wide, with the high terrain a decent distance from the field. It's pretty easy to enter the valley from the east by following I-70 or from the northeast by following Colorado State Highway 131. You can also get into the valley by following I-70 from the west, but this requires navigating Glenwood Springs Canyon, which is a little narrower with higher terrain surrounding it. The easiest approach is to fly to runway 25, which is what the prevailing winds typically favor. Departures and go-arounds from runway 25 require attention due to rising terrain in that direction. Runway 7 can also be used for approaches and departures, though approaches may require a higher descent rate to clear the higher terrain to the west of the field. There is a right-hand pattern for runway 7, keeping the traffic pattern for the whole airport south of the airport. About 35 miles northeast of Eagle County is McElroy Airfield in Kremling, Colorado, sitting at an elevation of 7,415 feet. The runway is of medium length at 5,540 feet. The airport lies in a valley of the Colorado River. This particular valley is not overly narrow, but there is high terrain on all sides of the airport. The easiest ways to get into the valley are by following U.S. Highway 40 in from the north or east, Colorado Highway 9 up from the south, or the Colorado River in from the west-southwest, though the canyon coming in from this direction is not overly wide. A right pattern is used for runway 27 to keep the traffic away from the higher terrain to the south of the airport. About 20 miles to the east of Kremling is the town of Granby, with its airport, Grand County Airport, lying on the northeast edge of town. Both are situated up against the west side of the Front Range, with the airport's elevation at 8,207 feet, making it one of the higher elevation airports in the state. The runway is a medium length at 5,001 feet. The airport is in a valley formed by the Colorado River. The valley in this area is on the narrow side, with terrain rising rapidly on all sides of the airport within a few miles. The traffic pattern is a right-hand traffic pattern for runway 27, keeping traffic on the north side of the field and over the lower terrain around the river. The best way to enter the valley is from the west along U.S. Highway 40 and the Colorado River, though entry via Milner Pass and Willow Creek Pass from the north, or Rollins Pass and Berthaud Pass from the south is also possible. To the north of Eagle County and the northwest of the Kremling and Granby areas lies the Yampa Valley, home to the town of Steamboat Springs and the Steamboat ski area. There are 3 airports in this valley. Craig Moffett Airport is the westernmost and probably the most accessible of the 3. It lies at 6,198 feet in a fairly open valley southwest of the town of Craig. The runway is of medium length at 5,606 feet, and there are no special pattern procedures. About 14 miles to the east lies the Yampa Valley Airport, often referred to as Hayden or Hayden Craig. This airport is the area's commercial airport, and it will see larger narrow-body airliners fairly often during the ski season in the real world. The airport is at 6,606 feet with a long runway, but the valley is a little more constricted here. The terrain is closer to the north of the field, resulting in a right-hand traffic pattern to runway 10 to keep the traffic south of the field. The most challenging airport in the area is the Steamboat Springs Airport at Bob Adams Field. It's located at the northwest corner of the town of Steamboat Springs and is nestled in a narrower part of the valley and on the western slopes of the Park Range, with terrain rising rapidly to the east of the field. It has the highest elevation of the 3 fields at 6,882 feet and the shortest runway at just over 4,400 feet. The preferred runway for all operations is runway 32. If conditions necessitate using runway 14, it has a right-hand traffic pattern to keep aircraft away from the higher terrain to the east of the field. The valley is accessed relatively easily by approaching from the west along U.S. Highway 40 and the Yampa River, or by following Colorado Highway 131 and Oak Creek up from the southwest. Following Colorado Highway 129 and the Elk River in from the north is also an option, though you'll have to clear higher terrain from that direction. You can also traverse Rabbit Ears Pass by following US Highway 40 in from the east-southeast. East of the Yampa Valley area is Walden-Jackson County Airport, which lies in the North Platte River Valley just south of the Wyoming border. The field elevation here is 8,154 feet, placing it among the higher elevation airports in the state, with a medium-length runway of 5,900 feet. The valley is a nice wide valley with the terrain a good distance away from the airport, and no special traffic pattern procedures are in place. The easiest routes into the valley are to follow the North Platte River and Colorado Highway 125 in from the north, or Colorado 14 south-southwest from the Kremling area. You can also follow Colorado 14 in from the east over Cameron Pass, or follow US 40 and Colorado 14 over Rabbit Ears Pass from the Yampa Valley area to the west. So far, we've been looking at airports that are in the northern Colorado Rockies, so let's take a look at some of the fields in the southern part of the state. The Central Colorado Regional Airport in Buena Vista, Colorado is located about 26 miles south of Leadville. The airport sits at 7,950 feet with a runway a little over 8,000 feet long. It lies in the Arkansas River Valley, which is a fairly wide open valley with the terrain situated relatively far from the field, though it does advertise a right pattern for runway 15 to keep traffic over the lower part of the river valley. The easiest ways to access the valley are by following US 285 and the Arkansas River up from the south, or by following the river and US 24 down from Leadville in the north. You can also traverse Trout Creek Pass along US 285 from the east. About 17 miles south of Buena Vista is Salida and its airport, Harriet Alexander Field. The airport sits west of town at 7,523 feet, with a longer runway at about 7,300 feet in length. The airport is fairly close to some higher terrain to the south, but despite this, the traffic pattern is standard for both runways. The easiest ways to access the airport are to follow US 285 and the Arkansas River from Buena Vista in the north, or follow the river and US 50 up from the southeast. You can also follow US 285 from the south over Poncha Pass. This is one of the lower elevation passes in the state, though the pass is relatively narrow. So if you want to depart Salida in this direction, make sure you have plenty of altitude before making the crossing attempt. This is one of those instances where you may want to circle and climb in the valley before you try crossing. You can also follow US 50 over Monarch Pass to the west, though this is one of the higher passes in the state. So again, make sure you have plenty of altitude to make the crossing in either direction, and be aware that you may need to circle and climb in the valley before making the attempt. Another fun airport in southern Colorado, and one I think is a little more challenging, is Mineral County Airport south of Creede, Colorado. The airport is situated at an elevation of 8,680 feet, making it one of the higher airports in the state, and is situated in a narrow portion of the Rio Grande Valley with high terrain on all sides of the airport. Because of this, a normal traffic pattern may not be possible. While it's not required by the airport, it's probably best to treat the airport as one way in and one way out, making your approaches to runway 25 and departures from runway 7. The runway is of a decent length at just shy of 7,000 feet, but is a little on the narrow side. About the only way to access the field is to follow the Rio Grande River and Colorado 149 down the narrow valley from the east. You can make this approach from over Del Norte, or you can also navigate up US 160 from the southwest over Wolf Creek Pass and join the Rio Grande at the town of South Fork. Just be aware that Wolf Creek Pass is one of the higher and narrower passes in the state. Due to the high elevation, high terrain, and lack of a suitable exit route, a go-around at this field would be quite challenging, if not impossible, so try to execute the approach precisely the first time. Another Rocky Mountain favorite is Telluride Airport in the southwest part of the state. At a little over 9,000 feet of elevation, it's one of the highest elevation airports in the country and is situated atop a mesa with steep drop-offs at each end of the runway. It's another airport that is one way in and one way out due to steep terrain to the east. Runway 9 is used for approaches, and runway 27 is used for takeoffs. The runway is reasonably long for this elevation at 7,111 feet of length. Both ends of the runway slope down towards the middle, and this is by design to give the aircraft a little bit of downhill roll to get their takeoff started and a little upslope at the end to help them stop during landing. The approach to the airport should be made from the west, entering the valley near the Cones VOR and following Colorado State Highway 145 and the San Miguel River to the field. The Gunnison Crested Butte Regional Airport lies about 58 miles to the northwest of Telluride, just east of the Blue Mesa Reservoir in the Gunnison River Valley. It's the primary commercial airport for the Crested Butte and Monarch ski areas and will see fairly frequent narrow-body jet traffic during the ski season. The airport is at an elevation of 7,680 feet in a fairly wide valley. It has a 9,400-foot runway to accommodate the commercial traffic during the season and has a smaller perpendicular unpaved runway, though this is closed from December through May in the real world. A right traffic pattern is designated for runway 6, keeping traffic south of the airport where the lowest terrain is. The easiest way to approach the field is from the west over Blue Mesa Reservoir in US Highway 50. You can also approach the field from the east over Monarch Pass or Marshall Pass, or from the southeast over North Pass or Cochitopa Pass. Another field that's fun and challenging to operate at is a private airstrip in the real world, Crested Butte Air Park at the base of Mount Crested Butte, about 19 miles north of Gunnison. The name of the field in Microsoft Flight Simulator is Buckhorn Ranch, which is probably what it was named when the airport data for Microsoft Flight Simulator was collected. The airport sits at almost 9,000 feet of elevation, which is among the highest in the country, and the runway is not long for a field at this elevation, at only 4,000 feet of length. It's also quite narrow at only 40 feet wide. This could make it a very challenging field for high-performance aircraft, so make sure to dig into your charts before attempting to operate here. The runway also slopes up towards the northwest towards rising terrain, so it's recommended that all approaches be made to runway 29 and all departures be made from runway 11. A right pattern is also specified for runway 11 due to Mount Crested Butte intruding into the airspace for a standard pattern. The best way to approach the airport is to follow Colorado 135 and the East River up from the south near Gunnison, though you can also attempt to come over Schofield Pass from the northwest. If you're interested in taking a guided tour of the Colorado high country, so to speak, I've created a bush trip you can download if you're a PC user to do exactly that. The trip is available at flightsim.to for free, and I'll leave a link to it in this video's description. The trip is 17 total legs, covers about 800 nautical miles, or roughly 7 hours of flying in the 172, and hits most of the airports we've talked about in this video, plus a number of fields that we haven't discussed. You can also adjust the weather to your liking and utilize air traffic control during your trip if you so desire. There's also a tip sheet for flying the trip successfully in the README file. I'm also planning to create 2 shorter bush trips in Colorado, one for the northern part of the state and one for the southern part of the state, that will be roughly half the length of the larger trip. The routing will be different, and there will be some different airports included in those trips that weren't included in the longer one. Once those are finished, I'll leave a link to those in this video's description as well. Outside of Colorado, there are a few fun and challenging airports to check out as well. One of the most famous, and one for the rich and famous, is Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It sits at an elevation of just under 6,500 feet and has high terrain to the east and west of it, with the Grand Tetons rising to over 13,000 feet to the west. It serves commercial aircraft and will see fairly frequent narrow-body jetliner service during the ski season, though its runway is relatively short for these types of operations at 6,300 feet. The easiest ways to approach the airport are from the north and south. In the southwest corner of Wyoming is the town of Laramie, with its airport located west of the city. The airport sits at an elevation of 7,284 feet with 2 long runways, the longest of which is over 8,500 feet. Laramie is in a wide open valley with the terrain located far enough from the field to not cause too many issues, and normal traffic patterns are used on all runways. The airport can be accessed from most directions, though if you approach from the west or southwest, you'll have to navigate around the Medicine Bow Mountains, with the elevation in this range reaching just over 12,000 feet. Out in California, Mammoth Yosemite Airport is nestled on the east slope of the Sierra Nevadas, just across the range from Fresno. It sits at an elevation of 7,135 feet and has high terrain off to the east and west of it, rising to above 11,000 feet to the east and over 13,000 feet to the west within 10 miles of the field. It has a 7,000-foot runway, and there is a right-hand pattern for runway 27 due to the proximity of the terrain to the west. The best route to get into this airport is to follow U.S. Highway 395 in from the north or southwest of the field. There are a number of airports between Mammoth Yosemite and Lake Tahoe to the north that are in the mountainous areas, though most are lower elevation airports that are not too difficult to navigate in and out of, so I won't go into detail on them, other than to say many offer some spectacular scenery and some are featured on the Nevada-California bush trip. Two of the airports south and north of the lake, Lake Tahoe Airport and Truckee Tahoe, are higher elevation airports surrounded by mountainous terrain. While they're not as high as the airports in the Rockies, there is terrain in excess of 10,000 feet near both airports, and navigation to the airport should be carefully planned to avoid having to perform high-energy descents close to the airport. Truckee Tahoe, more often just referred to as Truckee, is located north of Lake Tahoe at an elevation of 5,904 feet. It has two paved runways, the longest of which is just over 7,000 feet in length. The easiest approach to Truckee is along Interstate 80 from the west or the northeast, or from the south over Lake Tahoe and Tahoe City. In the real world, it's also a very noise-sensitive airport with very specific noise abatement procedures for both arrival and departure. If you're interested in trying some of these procedures out, they're available on the airport's website, and I'll leave a link to that in the video's description. Lake Tahoe Airport sits on the south end of the lake at an elevation of 6,266 feet. It has a single paved runway that's over 8,500 feet long. A right pattern is designated for runway 36 to keep the pattern away from the terrain to the east of the field. It can be approached from the north over Lake Tahoe, from the southwest over U.S. Highway 50, or from the southeast by following California 89 over Luther Pass. That concludes this video. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive list of every airport in the mountainous areas of the U.S. that would be fun or exciting to fly to. There are so many airports and Flight Simulator to explore, particularly when you consider all of the unpaved backcountry airfields that exist in the mountains. Hopefully this video has given you a good idea of where some of the headliners are and how to get in and out of them. But if I've left off a field that you think the community should know about, please let us know in the comments section. As always, if you've enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell to be alerted when I post new content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.